Our first speaker today is Nithya Shanti, internationally acclaimed teacher of conscious and joyful living. After a stint in the corporate world, he renounced it all to go and live in a forest for 6 years. He is now an ordained Buddhist monk who helps people to get free of their limitations and live both a balanced and a fulfilling life. Nithya Shanti will be talking about the journey from frustrating to fulfilling relationships. Please to send us your questions for him. I will pose them to him after his talk. Nithya, over to you.
Thank you, Suresh, for the warm welcome. Good to be here with all of you. Wondering where people are all over the world attending today's session. Just a small clarification. I used to be ordained Buddhist monk. I'm no longer a Buddhist monk. I was a monk from the age of 23 till about 28, about 6 years. I lived in the forest tradition of Thailand and Sri Lanka. So happy to be here with all of you today. And my topic is one of my favorites. In fact, sometimes the topic itself has everything you need. Connect before you correct. Connection before correction. And have you noticed this? Like with books, the amount of effort that goes into choosing a title for the book. The entire team, the editor, the writer, everybody puts all their mind into trying to compress the essence of the book in the title. In a way, the title is like the zip file for the book. And if you were to just concentrate on the title, you might have access to the essence of the book. So right here in the title of my talk is the essence of this talk. Connect before you correct. And what this means is that, first of all, connect with yourself. Like right now, before I even get into talking with all of you much, it's important for me to connect with myself, be in tune with who I am, where I am, as I am. With the lovely teaching that the longest journey in this world is a sacred pilgrimage from the head to the heart. And I've noticed, for example, when I answer the phone, my tone of voice is different. The cadence of my speech is different when I'm speaking from my head versus when I'm speaking from my heart. I don't know if you've noticed this. So first of all, I've got to connect with myself. If I'm out of touch with myself, I'm bound to be out of touch with you. Has to happen. Out of touch with myself means I'm lost in my thoughts. I'm lost in my assumptions, presumptions. In touch with myself means I'm more in touch with the natural beingness of this body-mind flow. I noticed this, I was 16 years old when I went for a meditation course. And I was quite fascinated by this one aspect of meditation, that when I sit for meditating, 15 minutes, 20 minutes, half an hour, sometimes 1 hour, meditate. And of course, the meditation itself was quite a struggle. My mind would keep wandering, keep bringing it back, keep wandering. But when I would emerge from meditation, I noticed this phenomena which was very consistent. Sounds were clearer. Tastes were more alive. Things I'd see were more colorful, bright. It's like my world had gotten scrubbed clean. There's actually a little anecdote of a man who wakes up in the morning and tells his wife, I don't want to go to office today. Why don't you want to go to office? Look outside, the weather is horrible. The weather is terrible. And even the streets are dirty. And people are wearing dirty clothes. And his wife smiles, goes to the kitchen, comes back with a damp piece of cloth. And she wipes the window. And he's amazed to find it's a beautiful day. The streets are clean. Kids are playing. Everyone's wearing clean clothes. He says, oh my goodness, I was judging the day, judging the street, judging the people. My window was dirty. I don't know if any of you have had this experience. Sometimes, we do these PowerPoint presentations. And there's a stain on the wall or the place where they project the screen. You're trying to clean the stain. Then you realize, oh my goodness, the stain is actually on the lens. The lens needs cleaning, not the wall, right? And so this is an example of how we sometimes misperceive. So my teacher used to say, if you want world peace, learn to make the heart still. When the heart is still, the world is already at peace. So connecting with ourselves is a foundation of connecting with others. The more deeply I can connect with myself as I am, with fewer judgments, fewer such distortions, the more I can connect with the people in my life. with fewer judgments, without fewer distortions. In fact, one of my teachers said something very short, which had a big impact on me, which I unpacked in my own way. Byron Katie, she said, no two people have ever met. What does she mean? No two people have ever met. We're meeting people all the time. In fact, if anything, we're meeting too many people. But then I thought about it more deeply, and she's right. No two people have ever met. Like right now, you're not meeting me. You're meeting your thoughts about me. I've never met anyone in my life. I've only met my thoughts about them. And when my thoughts about them are kind and charitable and accepting, then I have a nice relationship with them. When my thoughts about them are judgmental, then I don't have such a good experience. So no two people have ever met. Right? I noticed, I was telling Mahima who organized this, I noticed a judgment in myself when I was told, Mr. Anurag Goswami speaking after me, because I have a preconceived notion. So I noticed my preconceived notion come up. Oh, he's speaking after me. Not that fond of the way he conducts himself on his channel. So, but that's my preconceived notion, right? I've never met him, so I don't know. He could be the most incredible person ever. And even if I do meet him, I'm not going to meet him. I'm going to meet my thoughts about him. No two people have ever met. I've not even met my mom. I've only met my thoughts about my mom. I've not even met myself. When I look in the mirror, do I really see myself? Or do I see all these flashes of how I should be, how I could be? Should be drinking more water, should be exercising more, should be sleeping on time. Do we really meet ourselves, or do we meet our thoughts about ourselves? So what I got from this teaching, that no two people have ever met, it actually brings me back to a powerful Vedic teaching, which says, Yatha drishti, tatha shrishti. Yatha drishti, tatha shrishti. I'm not seeing things the way they are. I'm seeing things the way I am. I'm seeing things through the lens of my thinking process. Yatha drishti, tatha shrishti. When I change my way of looking at things, the things I look at change. So what is meditation? Meditation is the art of meeting myself without believing my thoughts. There will be thoughts. I mean, I've been meditating for more than 20 years. I still have a lot of thoughts. But there's a difference. I'm less identified with the thoughts, and I'm more in tune with the screen on which the thoughts are projected. Like right now, the fact that you can hear me implies behind me there's a background of silence. Around me, there's an envelope of silence. And behind you and around you, there's silence. If there was a big rock band playing behind me, you couldn't hear me. If there was a fighter jet flying over your head, you couldn't hear me. So the fact that you can hear me implies silence. So what meditation does is it reveals to us a background of silence. And that has a very special quality to it. The quality of all-inclusiveness. Like, for example, the room I'm in right now. Many things have happened in this room. My friends have gathered here. My family's gathered here. We've had, like, I'm interested in board games. So we've had, board game sessions over here. We've had deep meditations in this room. In fact, for the last so many months, I've been teaching here. And yet the space in this room does not agree with me. And the space in this room does not disagree with me. The space in this room just is. And that's powerful. That no matter how great a saint or a sinner I am, this earth accepts me when I walk on it. The sun shines equally on me, and the space in this room accepts me. And that's the kind of quality that we can touch in meditation. It's a part of us that is sky-like. And no matter how many terrible things you think you've done, that sky-like nature does not judge you. And no matter how many lofty, wonderful things you think you've done, that sky-like nature does not raise you up. It just sees you as you are. So the first step of connection is to meet myself without believing my stories. It's just a story. Anything I say about myself is just a story. And I've never met another person. I've only met my thoughts about them. So when I can meet the other person without believing my thoughts about them, that would be love. Otherwise, it's judgment. The other day I was on a call, and it was a call on practicing authenticity. So right in the beginning of the call, one person said, I'm feeling really judgy today. and I feel like judging. And right away, the other people at the call, like, don't want to go there. Don't want to go there. But then he clarified that judgment is not only negative, judgment can also be positive. So when I'm very thrilled about someone, that's also a kind of judgment. Anything you say about me, it's going to be true in some way, but not in all ways. So if you think of me as a very inspiring person, that may be true in some ways, but not in all ways. I'm not inspiring in all ways. I know that I'm a slightly sloppy eater. So when I tend to, when I eat, sometimes something or the other will fall off my plate. So that may not be that inspiring for some of you. And that's a feature of who I am as well, right? So in some ways, I'm inspiring, but not in all ways. So like this, when we meet people, can we meet them without adding the stories? And of course, the stories will come, assumptions will come, but to notice them. So in that particular conversation, it was fascinating to realize that the word judgment, even a positive idea about someone, is also a judgment. Because that can flip so easily, right? The more you raise someone up on a pedestal, the harder it'll hurt when you pull them down. Which I'm very wary when people try to put me on a pedestal. But please be careful. Right now you're putting me up. Tomorrow you're going to get me down. So best not to either get too raised up or pulled down. But of course that'll happen. And to again come back to that sky-like presence. So to meet myself without believing my stories would be meditation, would be clarity. To meet the other without believing my stories, that's love. And to meet life without believing my stories, that's awakening, that's enlightenment, that's freedom. So there is only this clarity, there is only this sky-like, it's called Rigpa in Tibetan Buddhism. Rigpa, sky-like open intelligence, where nothing sticks. Absolute freedom in all directions. And the stories that we tell. And just like our stomach digests, that's what it does. It just secretes various enzymes, acids, whatever it does to digest. The brain secretes thoughts. Stomach secretes enzymes and acids. Brain secretes thoughts. The brain will do its brain thing. It'll secrete all kinds of things. How have I come to believe what I believe? Not quite sure. There's all kinds of conditioning from school to the kind of people I've been with, the books I've read, the life circumstances I've had. Is it absolutely true? Certainly not. It's true in some ways, not in every way. So the willingness to be skeptical of my own thinking process is absolutely paramount to wisdom. In fact, that's how Aristotle defined education. The ability to have a thought and not believe it. If you only have thoughts and believe it, that you might be literate, but you're not educated. The mark of the educated mind is to have a thought and not believe it. There's this beautiful story I like a lot from the Sufi tradition, where the Sufi master calls his students and says, why is it that you shout when you get angry? It's normal. Master, it's normal. When we get angry, we shout. That's what everyone does. No, but the person's in front of you, even if you disagree with them, why do you have to raise your voice? So they're getting confused. Why do we have to raise our voice? It's a good point. Person's in front of us. We can also talk at a normal volume. So no one's able to give a satisfactory answer. So someone says, Master, you tell us. I think you probably know the answer. So the master smiles and says, when two people have a disagreement, they're physically like this, but their hearts have gone further apart. And we all know when someone is further away, we are sensing they can't hear us so well, or they don't want to hear us so well, so we raise our volume. So we speak louder. Why do we speak louder? When we are sensing the other person is not listening. So, yeah, that's true. The hearts have gone far away. We are physically close, but our hearts have gone far away. So, then the master said, how about when you're in love? How many of you have been in love? So lots of people raise their hands. Then what happens? Master, we speak very softly. Oh, you speak softly. Why is that? So now they have the answer. Physically, we like this, but our hearts have come closer. So we have to speak very softly. That's beautiful. And that's true. When you really love someone, you don't have to speak that loudly. In fact, you don't even have to speak that much. And then the master said, what about when you're deeply in love, completely in love? Have any of you here been deeply, completely in love? And a few people nodded, smiled. And he said, yeah, nothing needs to be said. That's the connection between a mother and an infant who can't really speak. The mother just knows this cry is for sleep, this cry is for milk, this cry is for a cuddle. And the mother kind of has that intuition. And similarly, you might have had that experience with pets or with very close friends. You just have a sense, you just know what's needed. It's an intuition that develops. So that's the kind of intuition. I was in Texas, in Dallas, meeting a friend of mine who runs a big organization. And we were having breakfast. And he said something that I've remembered for so many years. He said, Nithya, in my organization, when someone does not perform, my first question to them is everything okay at home? I love that question. Is everything okay at home? Because we all know, and especially now with the pandemic, we're all working from home. Sometimes when you're grumpy or you're not focused or you're not doing well at your work, there's something going on at home. There's an implication. Aren't we all, isn't that our experience? If you had a fight with someone at home, it affects your work. If you have not slept too well, it affects your work. One of my friends in my community was saying how the neighbor has got some kind of exotic birds. And these exotic birds keep making a lot of noise. And then another neighbor has decided to vacuum the house for 2 hours a day. All that has an effect on his ability to focus at work. Of course, it'll have an effect. So the first question for my friend is everything okay at home? And if everything's okay at home, second question is your health okay? Very often we can't talk about our health because I'm having a headache. It seems kind of complainy for me to talk about my headache. It's complaining for me to talk about my backache. The fact that I've been sitting Zoom call after Zoom call and my back's hurting. Or I'm having constipation, indigestion. Who's going to talk about that in a corporate setup? We're not going to talk about it. So to ask, is your health okay? Because that can also have an impact on work. And then, did you understand what we asked you to do? Because sometimes there's misunderstanding. With best intentions, there can be misunderstanding. Do you have the resources and the know-how on doing it? And only then he says, why was it not done? He doesn't start with why was it not done. You see, there are so many reasons. This is connection before correction. Before trying to get into fixing them, he tries to understand what happened before that. Giving people the benefit of the doubt. Another one of my favorite stories is from the Zen tradition. In Zen, they have something called session. Session is like a retreat, usually 7 days, can be longer or shorter as well. And in these retreats, people come and they usually stay like monks or nuns. Even though they may not be in the monks and nuns, they come and stay like monks and nuns. In a very strict setup, you will sleep and practice in the exact same place. So at night time, you'll roll out a little kind of a mat, tatami mat. You'll roll out the mat, you'll sleep there, and the whole day you'll meditate there. You just briefly get up for walking meditation and for food. So it's a pretty strict setup. And there was a session going on. One of the students came to the master and said, Master, some of my belongings are missing. Something's being stolen. And I suspect it's that student who took it. And the master says, go back and keep practicing. So he goes back and he's practicing. And then next day, another student comes, Master, my things are also missing. And we're both really sure that person stole it. So please take action against him. How can we meditate with closed eyes when our things are getting stolen? So master says, go back, keep practicing. On the third day, the student get very anxious. Things are getting stolen. We're sure it's that guy who's doing it. Master is too kind. We should make a petition. So they make a petition. Everybody signs that Master, please remove that student. He's disturbing all of our practice. He's stealing our things. How can we peacefully meditate when he's stealing our things? And they sign the petition and they hand it over to the teacher. Teacher looks at the piece of paper. Everyone is signed except that one student who's accused. And he calls for an evening meeting. Everyone gathers in the hall. And the master says, everybody who signed this piece of paper, please pack your bags and go home. Pack your bags and go home? Why? We didn't do anything wrong. We've come very sincerely to practice. We look forward to these sessions. Why should we go home? He says, because I trust you'll not steal anything. But this son of mine has not learned this yet. How can I send him home? He's here to learn these things. So he will stay here. Rest of you can go home. He needs to be here more than all of you. And the person who'd been accused had come fully prepared with excuses, had come fully prepared with a way to defend himself. And he was totally shocked. The master is taking his side. He was expecting to be humiliated. And the opposite happened. So he's totally shaken. He doesn't know how to respond to this. He breaks down and starts crying. And he confesses to the whole community, yes, I did steal those things. It's a habit from childhood. I can't stop myself. When I like something, I don't even know what happened. My hand just goes and takes it. Sometimes I don't even need it. I just take it. It's just a habit. Become a habit. And I really seek forgiveness. I will return the things I stole. What all of those students with their angry looks and angry words and angry actions could not change, the master transformed in one stroke of love. So the lesson from this, love me most when I deserve it the least. Love me most when I deserve it the least, because that is when I need it the most. I was seeing a YouTube video of a serial killer. You'll probably find it if you go searching for it. This man has killed many women. It's an actual thing. In the US courts, once you're convicted, the relatives and the family members are given one last chance to say something to the convicted killer or whatever it is, rapist, whatever he is, before he's convicted, before he's sent. It's like a testimony you can give. So one by one, family members are coming and talking about how he's destroyed their life and how they curse him and hope he rots in jail forever, goes to hell. And the man is just looking as though they're speaking about somebody else. He's just totally cold-faced. And then one man comes and says, he's a bearded man. He comes and says, I cannot even begin to describe the pain my wife and I are experiencing because our daughter has died. However, we come from a religion that teaches us to forgive. So you, sir, are forgiven. And when he says that, this guy breaks down in tears. That is the only thing that affected. Nothing else affected him. He breaks down in tears. In these prison systems, they found a lot of these people there have had such a lot of it. This is the kindness festival, right? They've had unkindness upon unkindness. And that's affected them so deeply. So when you take street dogs and you train them to become helper dogs, you can have dogs that can help blind people, deaf people. They need training. So they had a program where these dogs would come and these inmates would train them for a few hours every day. And a beautiful bond was formed. Violence in the prison went down. In classrooms, when rabbits were brought and children were taught to take care of the rabbit, hold it nicely, feed it, bullying went down. One of my friends had a habit when he goes by rickshaw. In India, it's a cultural thing, I think. Everyone fights with rickshaw drivers. I'm sure you all at least once in your life fought with a rickshaw driver. Because they're so unfair, they don't go by the meter and all of that. My friend has made a habit, every time he goes by rickshaw, whatever the rickshaw guy charges, he pays him twice that much. And they went, what? One guy said, why are you paying? I asked for 200, why are you giving me 400? I want you to give someone a free ride. A free ride? Who should I give a free ride? Anyone. Could be an old man, could be a sick man, could be anybody, could be old woman, could be anybody. But how do you trust me? If you don't want to give, that's fine. I trust you. And he smiled and walks away. So one day he did this, he came back, the rickshaw guy was still waiting for him. He said, sir, I want to take you home. He said, no, this was not for me, this was for somebody else. No, I want to take you home, please come. He says, you've touched my heart. Every day, for every ride, people fight with me. They accuse me of being a thief. Every day they abuse me. Today, for the first time, someone gave me extra money and said, give somebody a free ride. And you touched my heart. You reminded me, of course, I have to earn money for my family. But it's not just about earning money. I'm doing a service. And what stops me from giving someone a ride? I mean, I'm going to go in that direction anyway. I can give somebody a ride if I sense that they need it. If an old man is limping and needs it. You touched my heart today. And you reminded me my dharma, why I'm really here. Love me most when I deserve it the least. That's when I need it the most. Connection before correction. Connect with your own self. Connect with your own heart. Connect with the other person beyond your ideas about them. Connect with the impulse of life that wants to flow through. That's what I'd like to offer you today. I don't know if you have time for questions. Suresh, you want to help me?
Nithya, it's quite easy to find peace, I imagine, or relatively easy to find peace in a forest when you're surrounded by nature and animals. How does one find peace in the urban jungle?
It's not so easy to find peace in a forest. I challenge you to go and live in a forest.
Okay, that's my
actually,
first
I'm actually serious, because you're constantly surrounded by distractions here. You have magazines, you have television, you have your phone. Forget about forest. Just live in your own room for a day without your phone and your distractions. You'll find it's not the urban jungle. It's the inner jungle. If I take away your phone for a day and leave you in your room with no distractions, will you really be at peace? Or will you be knocking against the wall, going crazy? Most of us are going to go crazy because we can't live with the noise in our own heads. It's not the forest. It's not the urban jungle. It's the inner noise. And that, one way or the other, we have to reconcile with. It's not about the forest. You could be anywhere. You'll take your noise to the forest, like I did when I went to the forest.
All right. When I introduced you as a Buddhist monk, you said you're a former Buddhist monk. So that's a bit curious. Can a Buddhist monk get deordained?
Yeah, you can. Yeah. So it's a form of, just like you can be a police officer for a while and then you can retire. So of course that experience doesn't go. But if I were a Buddhist monk right now, I would be shaved. I'd be wearing my robes. And I'd be following a very specific protocol of certain ways of living. Like, for example, I'd eat before midday and things like that. So it's good to distinguish that. Just because you've ordained as a monk doesn't mean you're a monk at all times.
And why have you given up being a Buddhist monk? Or why have you renounced that life?
I decided that I want to expand my spiritual dimension beyond just a Buddhist perspective. While I love the Buddhist perspective, it is just still a perspective. It's a frame. And there are many frames at which we can look at life. So, and there are other reasons. Broadly, the teachings are still relevant, but the expression of the teachings, 2,500 years down the line, might not be exactly, in my book, just the way I want to live my life, necessarily the best way that I want to experience and explore the truth. So I love my time as a monk, but I couldn't see myself being a monk for the rest of my life. So that's the reason I left.
Do spiritual leaders and teachers like you have regular cravings like rest of us? Sugar, donuts, cake, alcohol, sex, tobacco. Do you have similar cravings?
I have some of those, not all of those.
All right. Nithya, thank you very much for talking.
All right. Thank you. Thank you.
Pleasure. And thank you for the message of connection before correction. I'll keep that with me for a long time.
All right. Be well. Thanks so much.